Yeah, so we've done something on loops, and sometimes things can get a little bit complex, and you get confused. So I want us to do some kind of nesting loops. Okay, I want us to put a loop inside another loop, and yeah, let's try that and see. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the concept of arrays. So I think I should first take you through what arrays are. So an array is it's a central storage or repository of elements. So if you want maybe store marks, you want to store age of people, you want to store marks of students, grades, names, but in array form, you will have to store them inside a variable that is uh, of array type. So how do you know that this variable is of an array type? You can have a variable that is plain like that, but how can you know that this variable is of type array? If you see any variable that is having these square brackets and inside it has any number or without any number, but so long as you see something that looks like this, my brother, my sister, that's an array. So there are different types of arrays. There's a one-dimensional array. That is if it looks like this. There's a two-dimensional array, 3-dimension for anything. So it goes in maybe a 1x1, a 2x2, 3x3, 4x4, 5x5, anything of the sort. So the size of an array is what you put in the square brackets. So I want us to store marks of two students in two course units. Okay, the first angle bracket represents rows, and the second angle bracket represents columns. The first pair of angle brackets is for rows, and the second pair of angle brackets is for columns. So I want to have an array that is going to store for me marks of two students in these marks, and these marks are stored in two course units I can get. So initially, I know you might be familiar with initialization, so you can declare an array and initialize it like this, or you can declare an array but allow a user to input or to initialize that array using the scanf function. So I have declared an array and I want to use my scanf function to initialize that array. I want a lecturer to enter the marks themselves. So what will I do? I will do what? I will ask them that, hey guy, you know what? Enter the marks, and when they see this, they will have to input that marks, and it will be this scanf function of ours that will enable them to do so. So you must be well aware that a scanf function is a C function that allows the user to enter data using the keyboard onto the console. The printf outputs something from the C program onto the console. Okay, but a scanf is for inputting to the console from the user using the keyboard. So we are inputting these marks. We are inputting these marks, but we are inputting them. We are inputting them in the what? In the array that we have stored up there. But I want to do this in a loop. Okay, so that's why I told you I want you to, if you meet something that is a little bit complex, you can know how to go about it. So I want it to be a nested loop, and I want to say that we've already gone through this. You know that inside that loop we do the initialization, and so inside that loop we do initialization, and we are saying that we want to store marks of two students. These marks are scored in what? In two course units. Yeah, so basically since it's going to be a nested loop, we shall have a for loop that is inside another for loop. when we say nesting, we are talking about having a ladder form. Okay, we have a child loop inside a mother loop. So this loop here is a child loop, and this one up here is the mother loop. So here we shall have a variable y. Remember, I initialized my variable y to a 0 up here. So I have that variable y, and yeah, I'm saying where that y. So let me first finish this. I'm saying where that y is less than a 2, I increment. So the first loop up is for rows. This first loop is for rows. Then I opened the body of that loop, and inside that loop I declared, or I brought another loop, for loop. So the second loop is going to be for the columns. Don't confuse the x and y. You can use any letter that you want. It is your choice. You're the programmer. Okay, so you can use you can use a z. No one has refused you. You can use a z. You can use a z, and when you get more annoyed, you can even use a p. No one will touch you. You're the programmer. You can use a z. You can use a. You just know you can use anything you want to. Yeah, you can use anything that you feel like you want to use. No one will ever touch you that why have you used this, so long as you're having what you're programming is actually making sense. Okay, so I in this case I want my p to be for I want my p to be for what? I want my p to be for rows, and my z to be for columns. So I told you the first loop up is for the rows, and the second loop inside the first loop is for columns. So I want that user to enter the marks. So whenever the marks they input are less than these two conditions, the program will keep on asking them to continue inputting marks. So inside the arrow size angle brackets, I will put there the variables. P and the variable z, which variables I've used inside my loops. Don't always mistake this. You may have other variables that you have in your program, but make sure that the variables you use in your loop are the ones you use inside the angle brackets of your are the ones you use inside the angle brackets of your array if you are to input something. So I have that program right there, and I want a user to input for me something from the keyboard. So I will run for you this program, and we'll see. I'll run for you this, and we'll see how it is going to work. So we can run this. You can run this. Yeah. So here it is. They're asking me to enter marks, so I'll enter. First course unit of student 1, they scored 21. The second course unit of student 1, they scored a 23. So those are the marks of that student. We may have a little mistake, but I will try to rectify it as we go on. So we are entering marks of students, but we are entering them using a for loop. You can also code something different depending on how you want to code your thing. So the reason I tried is outputting something that is wrong is because I have a z here and I didn't initialize that z, and I hope you realized that I have a z and I didn't initialize it. So after initializing it, let us see if it will give us the correct if it will run normally. So we shall enter the marks of the first student of their first course unit, and we also enter their third course unit, second course unit, and we enter marks of the second student, the first course unit, second student, second course unit. So we have entered marks of both students. These two are for the first student, these two are for the second student. So if you want to output those marks, you can still use a nested kind of loop, which I'm going to show you in this program. So if you want to output the marks, okay, if you want to output these marks that you have input of that student, you're still going to use the same kind of nesting. You have a loop, but it is inside another loop. That's the concept of nesting. Don't be scared when you hear the terms, nesting. I hear functions, subroutines, parameters. Those are. So we have entered the marks are here, but we want to output those marks in a matrix form. So this is where we are going to. This is where it becomes more interesting. We have entered the marks using a nested kind of loop, but we want to output those marks in a nested kind of form. So basically, I'll just use this line to separate something, just to be a little bit more organized in my code. So yeah, so I will still go back to the same concept. I have my for loop, and I told you that my P is for rows. So we already went through what the structure of a for loop is. We said in a for loop we have initialization, we give a condition, and we do an increment or decrement. So inside that loop, I'm saying that whenever we have output the first row, initially we have 0 row, but whenever that 0 row is less than the 2 rows that we intend to have, we should keep on adding 1 row. Okay, we should keep on having 1 row. So I have set my first loop, and I told you my first for loop is for rows. So inside that loop I nest another for loop, and that second for loop is for columns, and there are also 2 columns that we want to output. So we are going to say that whenever that z is less than 2, we keep on adding one column. I hope you already know you know what increment and decrement concepts are. Where we have an increment, maybe if it was a p minus minus, that would be a p. That would mean it is a p is equal to p minus 1. Okay, where we have a z plus plus, that can also be interpreted as z is equal to z plus 1. So basically that's it basically. So it will be z is equal to z plus 1. So basically that's it for increment and decrement. So what I want to do is I want to output my marks, but I want to output them in a matrix form. So I will have this inside my second loop. So it is inside the second loop where we do the actual input like we had here, and the actual output like we had here. So I'm inputting marks, but I'm using the second for loop which has been nested in the mother loop. So the marks I'm inputting are of type integer, so I will use the conversion specifier d. The marks I'm outputting are of type integer, so I will use the conversion specifier d, and I'm outputting marks that have been entered to that array marks. So here I don't use the address operator, but I will simply use the variable marks or the array name marks, and then inside this I will put inside the array size angle brackets, I will put the variables that I used in my code. So after that, now I'm almost done with it. So after that, what we expect is that each row should be put on a different line. So after doing this inside in the inside loop, we come here before the closing bracket of the outer loop, and we say after each row go to the next row. Okay, go to the next line. If you don't do that, all marks are going to be scattered, or they are going to be output on the same line. So that is what we have. we are going to first input these marks, but after inputting them there will be output. So I hope so basically that's it. Nesting a loop, having a loop inside another loop, so you can go ahead and code as many things as you want, having loops inside others, so it can be a little bit interesting. So all I will do is I will just save this and I will put it for you, so you can see how it works. Yeah, so I'm going to input my marks. So after I've input my marks are output in a nested form. But why are they looking like this? They are looking like this because of the way I wrote my code. If I wanted there to be space between these marks, I had to come here and create the space, or I would simply use the tab key. Okay, so I would \t, and if we go back and resave this nested, if we go back and resave it and we run and we input marks, so the matrix form that we wanted appears here. So it is different from what we had at first, because what we had at first is it was too tidy, the things we combined. So to eliminate that, I simply did what? I simply came and put this tab key here. So basically that's how you can go about nesting, putting something inside another thing. So that's it. And have a really nice time.